Hi, in the previous video, we discussed one of the most common mistakes when working with the useCallback hook in React, but it's not the only hook that has its own nuances. Let's take a look at the most popular hook, useEffect, for example. We know that useEffect is a replacement for component did mount, component did update, component will unmount, but do they work exactly the same way? To test it, let's play a little quiz. Suppose we have a red block with a certain height and width, and our task is to display the width of this block on the screen. In class components, the code would look something like this. We will store the width in the component state, and to retrieve the dimensions of the block, we need to create a ref and attach it to the block we are interested in. Then, after rendering, we need to get the width and update the component state. For this, we use component did mount, where we retrieve the necessary value using the ref. And then we simply display this value on the screen. Now, dear experts, the question for you. As you can see, the initial width value is 0, and component did mount is only called after the render, which assigns a new value to the state. What will the user see in the browser? Will the width initially be 0 and then quickly change to the actual value, or will we immediately see the actual width of the block? Take a minute to think about it. And the correct answer is, the width will immediately display the number 220 without an intermediate value of 0. The result is quite interesting, so let's conduct another test to better understand the current situation. Let's create a sleep function, but not an asynchronous one using setTimeout, but instead a synchronous one that blocks the thread. We'll do this by creating a while loop for the specified number of milliseconds. Now let's add a 3000 millisecond sleep before assigning the width value to the state. What do you think the user will see now? I'll give you literally 1 second, a chance to pause and try to answer the question yourself. And the result is again slightly unexpected. Our page freezes for 3 seconds, and only after that the browser renders a red square and immediately displays the number indicating the square's width. Based on it, we can already draw some conclusions. So, based on the rendering results, a virtual tree is created, but before passing the virtual tree for rendering in the browser, component did mount is called. And moreover, it blocks the rendering in the browser, in our case, for 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1, and set state rebuilds the virtual tree again, and only after all of this, the browser draws the page. And even if we specify a delay of not 3 seconds, but 30 seconds, the result won't change. We will see the page freezes for 30 seconds. Now let's compare it with how useEffect works. Let's write the same code in a functional component. First, we initialize useState and useRef. Then, in the return statement, we attach the ref to the block and display the value of the width variable. And finally, the useEffect itself, with an empty array as the second parameter to simulate component did mount. Inside useEffect, we will do a synchronous sleep for 3 seconds, and only after that, we will assign the width value of the block from the ref to the state. And as you may have guessed, the result will be different. We will initially see the value of 0, and only after 3 seconds will the number update to the width of the block. Thus, we can assume that useEffect works according to the following scenario. First, a virtual tree is created based on the return statement, then it is rendered in the browser, and only after that, the function passed to useEffect is called, where the thread is blocked for 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1, and after the sleep, the virtual tree is rebuilt with a new value in the state, and this tree is then rendered in the browser. Now we know for sure the component did mount is different from useEffect. To understand whether the difference is due to the implementation details of the hooks, or intentionally, let's turn to the documentation as always. Unlike component did mount or component did update, effects scheduled with useEffect don't block the browser from updating the screen. This makes your app feel more responsive. The majority of effects don't need to happen synchronously. In the uncommon cases where they do, such as measuring the layout, there is a separate useLayoutEffect hook with an API identical to useEffect. From this, we can conclude that React developers intentionally gave us a completely new API that allows us to render content in the browser before the function passed to useEffect is executed. This API simply doesn't exist when writing components with classes. It can only be simulated by using setTimeout inside component did mount, but this looks more like a workaround than a solution. On the other hand, if we need to execute some code before rendering in the browser, we have been provided with the useLayoutEffect hook, the interface of which is completely identical to useEffect, but in terms of execution order, it completely coincides with component did mount. I hope the video helped you understand the differences between useEffect, component did mount, and useLayoutEffect. And if you want to support our channel on Patreon, you will find the necessary links in the description. And of course, like our video, subscribe to the channel, and be sure to click on the bell icon. There is no spam here, only quality content. Bye.